Mount Everest is everything wrong with society.
Climbing the world's tallest mountain used to be the most respected achievement in mountaineering, and today, it's an absolute joke. The mountain is littered with trash. There are traffic jams at the top. TikTokers are filming themselves on the brink of death. This guy thought he was a legend for doing a backflip at 29,000 feet.
God.
And it somehow gets worse. A 60-year-old climber got mad at his partner, who was dying of oxygen deprivation, for taking blurry photos of him at the top.
Oh, hell no. That is mad. Yeah, I think people are probably doing Mount Everest moreover for the fact that it would look good on the gram and not really doing it for their own self. It's kind of like fulfillment. Okay, I'm kind of hypocritical, but I would probably post about it. But I think it would be a big achievement that I would look forward to doing. I don't think I have any interest in doing Mount Everest ever, just for the sheer fact for how dangerous it is. But I think people are just doing it for like the wrong reason. And a lot of times when you do things for the wrong reasons, it'll catch up to you.
Inexperienced climbers are actually dying while waiting in a line of 100+ people to reach the peak.
Dude, is this seriously a line though? Like, I wouldn't expect there to be that many people. There has to be like regulations for how many people can go up at a time though.
And the craziest part is, all of them are paying insane amounts of money to do this. One woman took out a second mortgage on her house to be able to afford the journey. And that's because there are companies that charge up to 200,000 euros for a luxury Mount Everest experience.
What in the world?
Offering private chefs, heated tents, ping pong, and even massage tables.
Ooh, that sounds good,
all
though.
of which would not even be possible without the native people, aka Sherpas, who are the only people that can actually survive the extreme climate on the mountain. These locals have went from being expert guides to overworked and underpaid workers that are dying so someone else can get bragging rights online.
Oh my
Before I
goodness.
researched this video, I knew it was bad, but I had no idea it was this bad. There's a dark side of Mount Everest that is only getting worse every year, and once you understand what's really happening up there, it completely changes the way you look at the tallest mountain in the world. Starting with the only people worthy of praise for climbing Everest, the Sherpas. Sherpas are the people that migrated from eastern Tibet to the Solu Khumbu district of Nepal centuries ago. After generations of settlement, they had biologically adapted to a harsher climate where most Westerners can barely breathe. Located on the border of Nepal and Tibet, Mount Everest sits at an elevation of 8,900.
That's crazy. Like, imagine being the first person to look up at that and be like, I want to climb that. That's actually kind of beautiful though.
48 meters or 29,031 feet.
Wow.
For perspective, that's about 20 to 26 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other, depending on where you measure the top. Or for fun, it's about 5,696 Danny DeVitos tall. Most humans around the world are biologically unable to survive at that elevation, but when scientists were able to study the Sherpas, they quickly proved that they had superior genetics. Interesting differences showed up in the muscle cells of the two groups. In the muscles of the Sherpas, the study found the cell's mitochondria, the energy-producing parts, converted more oxygen into energy. The Sherpas' mitochondria were less leaky and therefore more efficient than Westerners' mitochondria. In layman's terms, they were better at using oxygen. During the climb, Sherpas are the ones maintaining the ropes, checking anchors, and are able to use more energy to make split-second decisions to prevent mountaineers from dying, which is how the very first summit was actually possible. New Zealand mountaineer Edmund Hillary and the native Sherpa Tenzing Norgay finally became the first men to summit Mount Everest in 1953. Hillary admitted that none of it would have been possible without Norgay and his natural ability to physically use less oxygen in times of crisis.
I was leading down the icefall, and when I was crossing a crevasse, a large lump of ice gave way on which I was standing, and I set off down a crevasse. Well, Tenzing, who was following, had the rope tight in a very short time, and pulled me up so I didn't go very far.
When people saw the successful Hillary and Norgay expedition, they couldn't wait to be the next people to reach the top. Mountaineers Ernst Schmid and Jurig Marmot used the same route as Hillary and Norgay along the southeast ridge, and their climb to the summit was successful. But what these pioneers never expected was that this route along the southeast ridge,
Like, Mount Everest should never have a photo that looks like this, dude. Like, imagine waiting in line, like you're going to Universal Studios for like Harry Potter ride, for Mount Everest in the freezing cold with no food. and no bathroom break at elevation with less oxygen. Like, dude, what?
Would one day become as crowded as the lines to get on amusement park rides. Everyone understands that climbing a mountain is dangerous, but I think we need to remind these tourists and TikTokers who aspire to climb Everest how this thing is a literal death trap, and that multiple people actually die every year on this journey. But first, we all live busy lives.
Oh, this is an ad.
It all starts in Lukla, Nepal, a mountain town with an airport smaller than a football field that tourists from around the world fly into to start their trek. The hike from Lukla to the Everest base camp will take more experienced mountaineers around 4 to 7 days.
Wait, this looks like the Roblox game.
But for the slower and less experienced, it can take as many as 7 to 14 days. Luckily, along the way, there are beautiful mountain towns and villages with friendly locals. This isn't even the beginning of the true Everest climb, and yet most people will experience the brutal side effects of minimal oxygen at higher altitude.
Like, imagine wanting to go on Mount Everest and before you even reach it, you're already looking like this. At that point, put the fries in the back.
One previous trekker wrote, "Over 5,000 meters, you're out of breath, even going up a couple of flights of stairs. It feels like hiking with the worst hangover you've ever had. Headaches, nausea, dizziness, and blurred vision." YouTuber Madison Clydesdale talked about getting sick halfway through the hike to base camp.
It's day 4. Last night I got really sick from, I think, altitude sickness, but it also could have been the pasta that I ate. So I did have to take some Diamox, which is the altitude sickness pill. And once you start taking that, you have to continue the entire time until you've gotten back down to a lower elevation.
The reason it takes so long to reach base camp is not necessarily because of the distance, but rather the required exercises called acclimatization rotations, which are basically just trekkers staying multiple nights in these mountain towns so their bodies can adjust to the altitude. Once a climber reaches base camp, they will be breathing in about 50% of the oxygen they would be at sea level, and this is where the extreme danger begins. First, they must consider that at any point there can be an avalanche, falling rock, or horrible weather that can kill them. Next to camp is the Khumbu Glacier, which shifts around by several hundred meters every year, which means the trail to the summit is never exactly the same.
Dude, this just adds more aura to the people who did it for the first time. They didn't have any of this information, probably didn't even know how to set up a tent. Actually, they probably didn't, but they just didn't have any information. They were still able to man up, suck it up, use their superior genetics, and just go up. I wonder if Duke Dennis could do it.
So they go in with a plan, but they must be ready to adapt. After base camp, the climbers are immediately confronted with the most dangerous physical obstacle on the mountain called the Khumbu Icefall. It's where you'll find the highest concentration of these extremely deep crevasses that require temporary bridges made out of ladders to cross.
What the hell?
These crevasses shift on average a few feet per day, but luckily the Sherpas have once again made the dreams possible for thousands of mountaineers. Sherpas are not just guides, they're the ones who quite literally build the path to the top. They're on the mountain daily, fixing ropes along the most dangerous sections, setting ladders, and mapping out the safest possible route through the constantly shifting ice. They carry the majority of the gear, set up camps at extreme altitudes, and are constantly saving lives of those who are in way over their head. These days, Everest isn't conquered. It's more of an endurance feat engineered by the Sherpas. Despite this, human error is real and fatal accidents still happen all the time. There are also the massive seracs that must be considered. These ice towers are highly concentrated around the Khumbu Icefall, and if one collapses nearby and causes an avalanche, the odds of survival are often next to zero. If mountaineers make it through the Khumbu Icefall alive, the next stretch of the journey is between Camp 1 and Camp 2. It's often referred to as the Western CWM or the Silent Valley. The air is thinner, which forces mountaineers to move slow.
God, this place is huge. I know at the start of the video I was like, I'm probably not gonna do it. I'm more likely than not gonna do this. Like, look how tiny these people look in there. Like, have to waddle all the way over there, and you're not even going up the mountain yet.
And the deep crevasses become a lot harder to spot. Fallen snow can cover the top of the crevasses, forming what's called a snow bridge. It almost acts like a trap, and if climbers fail to spot it in time, there's a good chance they'll step on what looks like firm ground, only to fall in and be—
Ooh, and this reminds me, I've seen photos of, no trigger warning, of like frozen dead people, and a lot of the times it's too dangerous to even take their bodies out of like the ice or where they fell in. in, and you just see like their bright, colorful like jacket, and they're just like frozen. A lot of times you don't see their face, luckily. Or I say that because like it would be kind of disturbing to see their face. They normally just have like the like mask on, but it's scary.
Buried alive. But this is far from the only chance a journeyman on Everest has to be buried. Between camps 2 and 3, they have to get through an obstacle known as Lost Face. According to one climber, climbing the Lost Face can be dangerous because of the high chance of avalanche and constantly falling rocks. As a matter of fact, one of our Sherpas on our expedition once had his head cracked open by a falling rock. Apparently, he was running around screaming, wanting a rescue. Avalanches and falls remain the primary cause of death along the southeast ridge. However, the greatest obstacle that people tend to forget about Everest is timing the reliable weather. The hike has to occur in a brief window between mid-April to late May. If anyone attempts to scale Everest in the winter, the temperatures are lethal, reaching below freezing even at base camp, and the storms are frequent and extreme. The wind speeds between December and February alone could carry you off the face of the mountain like a leaf. The summer is monsoon season, which can cause heavy rainfall, high humidity, and the risk of avalanches and landslides. Fog and cloud cover also obstruct visibility, making navigation very difficult. Camp 4 is the final resting place where mountaineers can set up a tent and sleep. After this, they must reach the summit and come back down in one go, which usually takes about 12 to 18 hours round trip. No
I wonder if the outdoor boys could do this.
matter how prepared they are, what kind of gear they have, or how many Sherpas are with them, nothing stops your body from working against you, which is why they call it the death zone.
This is what people call the death zone. In the world, there are very few humans.
The death zone. I feel like if I was interested in doing this, I'd do a little bit of research. I'm like, all right, it's starting to line up. And I see like the last 10 point is called the death zone. I would have to rethink my choices.
In habitations above 16,000 feet because you just can't keep up. Now all of a sudden you're at 26,000 feet, you're 10,000 feet above that level. And so things are breaking down. If you cut yourself, you don't heal very well. If you get sick, you do not get better. So you're definitely in the zone where your body can't keep up. And on summit day, from the South Col to the summit, people are driving themselves really hard. They typically haven't been eating and drinking very well. They haven't been sleeping well. They're affected by the hypoxia. They may be hypothermic. And so
someone saying they've climbed Mount Everest, though, that is hikey, like a huge flex. I knew it was a flex before this video, but now I'm starting to really understand like the magnitude of it. But before, I feel like I had like the average civilian thought on it, which is like, yeah, it's impressive. But they don't really know what goes into that.
This is the most dangerous place. One, just environmentally, the atmosphere, there's less oxygen. And then two, they're tired from this whole process.
But the most frightening part of reaching this stage is how the climate messes with your judgment and self-awareness. Most climbers refer to this as summit fever, where you stop focusing on the frostbite on your body, measuring the amount of oxygen you have left in your bottles, assessing your remaining strength, and ignore the lethal cold temperatures, all because you're so excited to reach the top. The last thing, hopefully, that will bring you back to reality is the hundreds—
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. Over 200 dead bodies in Mount Everest are left untouched, and people even use them as landmarks. It is too difficult and dangerous to carry them down. Like saddening, actually.
Of dead bodies that remain frozen solid as a reminder of what might happen if you lose your mind and fail. On the north side, there's a summit fever victim that acts as a landmark, known as Green Boots, who is an unidentified dead body that many believe died in 1996.
96, and he's still a landmark?
And Green Boots isn't alone. The oldest body to be found on Everest is George Mallory, who attempted to be the first climber to reach the peak in 1924. His body was found in 1999, and no one knows whether or not he made it to the top. He passed over 100 years ago, and his body is still there. But most of the deaths on Everest don't happen on the way up to the top. It's actually the descent from the summit that tends to be the most dangerous. The euphoria after reaching the top, combined with the fatigue, causes people to make bad decisions like missteps on a steep slope or forgetting to fasten themselves to a secure line on the way down. Like in the infamous 1996 disaster, when 30 climbers thought they could beat the bad weather closing in at the top of the mountain, only for the storm to claim 8 lives and leave many severely injured. One of the survivors, named Beck Weathers, fully expected to die until his expedition leader, Michael Groom, managed to save him just in time.
And I'm not surprised when you saw me the second time that I looked like I'd already gone.
The severe frostbite led to Weathers losing a large portion of his hands, forearms, and even a number of toes. But to people like Michael Groom, climbing high summits—
Yikes. I'm sorry to them. I had to like cover my face from that. It was like kind of like too much for me. Man.
summits was like another religion. He truly felt that this was a worthwhile risk to stand at the top of the world.
This black mark here represents the frostbite that I received in the last few days.
Good heavens, Michael, I mean, is it really worth it?
Well, you'd have to think, looking at it, that it's not, but we all realise the risks involved, and you accept those risks, or you don't play the game.
I feel like people don't really understand the risks though. Like, you accept it, but I feel like people don't really comprehend, internalize, and really evaluate the risks. It's like, look,
TikTok.
walking to Camp 2 on Everest, think it's all sweet, and then you look to the right and then the person's like removing their toes off. I think that one of the scariest things that happen with, I think it's frostbite or hypothermia, when people are about to die from either one of those two. I forgot which one exactly. I don't really know this. Anyways, when people are about to die from like severe coldness, what they tend to do is they'll take off like all their clothes because they start to feel super hot. And the reason why that's happening is your body last ditch effort to keep yourself alive. So it's like pumping you with adrenaline. You feel super warm. Feels almost like you're in a hot tub, and they're like, oh, I'm getting so hot. Take off all your protective gear, taking off your puffer, taking off your pants, taking off your leggings. And then they just go. I feel like when I see those type of videos, it's just like you're watching like a dead man move.
Bianca Adler attempted the climb before turning 18. Luckily, she was smart enough to realize she would not survive the death zone and turned back, but it still nearly killed her.
I just come back.
Oh my god. Oh. And like in the last TikTok we just saw, she was really all happy and just like, oh, let's do this. People sign the waiver, but they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. I feel bad though. Ooh.
Her video racked up tens of millions of views on TikTok, but people weren't exactly sympathetic. It's hard to feel bad for people who climb Mount Everest. Mind you, she paid for this. Rich people problems. Being poor has saved me yet again.
700,000 likes. I get where these people are coming from, but to play devil's advocate, not everyone is in the same position in life. And sometimes when you say have more money, you start to want to experience new things, and that's like what makes you go into that. But I think it's just like more education should go around on this type of thing. Maybe the people who promote Mount Everest should be to blame moreover, because they probably do tell you the risks, but they probably don't tell you the real risks. And that's what traps people into like going a part of it. But it's also the social media.
But Bianca is definitely not looking for sympathy. As I speak right now, she is attempting to summit the mountain once again.
Okay, that's her fault. I agree with every single comment.
Now, very rarely there are people who complete a successful summit without serious injury that are not entirely delusional. The famous survivalist Bear Grylls climbed Everest at just 23 years old. He's put himself in more dangerous experiences than most people, but he always seems shaken whenever he talks about how he barely escaped the mountain with his life.
2 Russians and a Brit and a New Zealander from other teams, but they're on the mountain at the same time and never came back. And I remember with their teammates, afterwards, just them in tears and sitting with them, and it definitely made me question a lot at the time, is any mountain really worth a life? Of which the clear answer is no. But at the time, sometimes your ambition is, it's like, we're going to go for it. And that's why I think now, kind of with a bit of time and experience, would I do it now? Would I take a 1 in 6 chance of not coming home now? No, because you have more to live for.
From lost limbs to frozen corpses along the trail to deep crevasses and avalanches that bury you within seconds, you'd think this would scare mountaineers away from ever trying to reach this summit again. But the stories and drama surrounding Everest have only encouraged more climbers to attempt it every year. The journey of climbing Mount Everest has been so romanticized in the past few decades that an entire tourism industry is being built for inexperienced climbers that are totally ignoring the deadly ramifications of their dream.
Tourism for Mount Everest. That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, the people a part of this video are to blame, but they try glamorizing it so much. Like, yeah, we'll get you free massages, we'll get you heated pads, private chefs. There should be no reason why that should be there. It should just be stick to the basics, know the plan, don't get too comfortable, because when you get too comfortable, you can become complacent, and that's when bad things could happen.
To take a selfie on the tallest mountain in the world. By the early 2000s, the focus surrounding Everest had shifted from small commercial expeditions with select groups into dozens of companies attempting to sell the full luxury experience. Many of them, like 7 Summit Treks, 8K Expeditions, Furtenbach Adventures, and Asian Trekking, started offering packages that cater strictly to the ultra-wealthy. Here are some of the service descriptions from these expedition companies. A certain level of comfort and luxury, like Western chefs, heated lounge tents, roomy member tents with real beds, a zero carbon footprint, or our own team doctor are an obviousness for us. Serving you champagne is easy. If you look at Furtenbach Adventures,
serving alcohol climbing Mount Everest
base camp setups, it looks more like glamping than the world's most dangerous climb. They even have hot water showers. Their most premium experience package will cost you 200,000 euros, which is nearly $250,000. But the company climbing the 7 summits takes it a step further. Our spa is fully stocked with a massage table, heater, electric blanket, relaxing music, and of course our very talented massage therapist to help cure the aches and pains from upper mountain climbing exclusively for our CTSS team. Tents are 20 feet by 14 feet and come fully equipped with a queen-sized bed with electric blanket, heating, satellite TV, in-suite bathroom.
Like, I would want everyone to have this experience going up it, but I feel like this isn't really the place to have that because, like I said earlier, you'll get complacent and then you're not even really there to climb it. You're just there for like a little getaway.
An entryway to store your duffels, lighting, charging, couch, table, a CTSS onesie for lounging, and our famous morning drink service by our on-staff barista. Little reminder that that's not a description for a beachside resort. This is the tallest mountain in the world.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
And their ads do a hilarious job of justifying these ridiculous amenities to their rich clientele.
The heart of camp is our famous big house, a huge geodesic dome designed to feel like a giant living room. Sure, having a professional barista pump out limitless cappuccinos while you play the world's highest game of ping pong or chill out overlooking the icefall, it may seem a bit over the top. Like, is this an Everest expedition? It's not really meant to be luxurious. But hear us out, because while you may think we're being soft, all of this is actually highly strategic.
And yet, the marketing is working. Everest has become a multi-million-dollar cash cow, but the luxury offerings have misled people into thinking they're capable of doing the impossible. According to 3 university professors studying Everest's relationship with the tourism industry, sleeping in heated tents, not preparing their own food, or helping to move equipment does not test mental and physical fitness in such challenging environments.
That's exactly what I'm saying, bro. I'm actually a super genius.
Pushing to the summit may put their own lives and the lives of other climbers and rescue teams at risk. Without all of the extra work people traditionally did at base camp testing their strength before the ascent, many unprepared climbers started marching to their deaths. Like 34-year-old English hiker David Sharp, who made his ascent up Everest from the Northeast Ridge. Receiving initial assistance with Asian Trekking, Sharp felt like he could make the rest of the ascent up Everest on his own in what's called an unguided climb. He refused to seek the assistance of Sherpas and only took 2 bottles of oxygen for the ascent.
Why would anyone deny help from the Sherpas? Anything the Sherpas would tell me, I'm listening.
But by the time he reached the death zone, Sharp was reportedly crawling, on the verge of total exhaustion. Over 40 climbers passed him as he settled into Green Boots Cave, slowly dying from the lack of oxygen until he eventually perished. It was one of the first widely publicized critiques of the larger commercial expeditions. Even Edmund Hillary was reportedly outraged about the mismanagement and neglect of a fellow mountaineer. But Sharp wasn't the only tragedy. Out of the 200 summits on both major sides of the mountain, 12 were found dead. But the details surrounding Sharp's death are slightly disputed. Many have pointed out that some Sherpas actually made their way to Sharp's location to supply him with oxygen, but he allegedly refused to move and only wanted to sleep. There's only so much someone else can do to help someone in the death zone. It's not like you can literally drag them down the mountain, and you definitely can't rescue them with a helicopter. Sharp's death serves as a warning about unguided climbs without Sherpas. Then again, Sherpas are not invincible invincible either, and guiding inexperienced climbers has only increased their risk of death. Sherpas are starting to be seen more by paying customers as service workers rather than expedition partners. In 1992, for example, when the first commercial mountaineering expeditions on Everest began, 22 Sherpas and 65 paying mountaineers summited, one Sherpa for 3 clients. Nowadays, 2 or even 3 Sherpas for each member of a commercial expedition is common. One YouTuber even explained how his guide was doing all the work for him so they could move faster.
And he was going fast. I don't know why we were going so fast down. We had made great time. We were feeling good. We had
we're not in a rush.
But my guy was going so fast. I mean, he was unclipping and clipping for me. I didn't even get the chance to clip my own carabiner, but hey, you know what? I'm not going to complain.
Of course, this has a lot to do with the fact that today's Sherpa will basically do anything requested when working for larger companies. On top of guiding you up the mountain, the Sherpas are the ones setting up the 2+ bedroom tents with showers and chefs at base camp. They set up these spa treatment facilities, the medical stations, and they even climb up and down the mountain collecting the growing mounds of trash people leave in the higher
Like, come on, guys. Like, if you're gonna do this, why leave trash?
altitude camps when hikers don't want to expend too much energy bringing it back down. And most of these Nepalese Sherpas don't even want to do this anymore. But due to their isolation and poverty, most of them feel like they have no other choice.
Over the past 5 years, 32 Sherpas have been killed as part of guided climbs on Everest. 32 among just a few hundred who work there. That makes the job of the Sherpa, per capita, the most deadly on Earth.
Why would anyone do such dangerous work?
The thing is that there's no option, there's no choice.
There's no other work?
No other work.
What percentage would you say would rather not be here risking their
80 to 90%, easy.
9 out of every 10 Sherpas would rather not be here.
Yeah.
Let me get this yawn out real quick. Alright, we're back.
It's sad.
And as a result, every spring season leads to more and more Sherpas carrying unnecessary luxury supplies to different camps along Everest, risking the possibility of death. In 2014, dozens of Sherpas were transporting supplies from base camp, only for 16 of them to be buried after a fatal avalanche. According to the Himalayan database, the ledger keeper of the human death toll in mountaineering, 132 climbing Sherpas have perished on Everest slopes, 28 in the past decade alone. Additionally, while the foreign climbers pay over $50,000 per climb, a climbing Sherpa will usually make between $2,000 to $5,000 per season.
How is that even possible? That's what I'm saying, bro. It's like, I feel like it's more over like on the companies glamorizing, doing like false advertisements, like this is gonna be the best experience, you're gonna be able to brag about it to all your friends, and they're not even properly compensating the people that make it all happen.
Getting multiple climbs. But the Nepalese government sees tourism as a valuable revenue stream for the country. The industry grows bigger every year with little consideration for the Sherpas. Even Tenzing Norgay's own son Norbu has called it out for the troubling business it actually is.
You know, I call it Everest Inc.
Everest Inc.
Everest Inc. You know, it's a cash cow.
What do you think your father would make of it, Everest in 2018?
You know, if he were alive today, I don't think he would recognize the mountain, and, you know, if anything, he might feel sorry that he actually climbed it.
But the worst part of the luxury marketing and Sherpa exploitation is that it's attracted more and more of the wrong types of people interested in climbing Mount Everest, which is why you see numbskulls like this doing backflips at the peak of the mountain.
Good morning for the top of Mount Everest.
Like, that's cool. I mean, that's a cool background, I'm gonna be honest. That was pretty badass, but it's like, I can't support it just for knowing that they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Sherpas saying to themselves, if you had so much extra energy, why am I carrying your Everest's continued popularity has led to some of the most disturbing and honestly embarrassing stories the mountain has ever seen. In 2012, a Canadian woman named Shreya was desperate to make her way up to the Mount Everest summit in the middle of a poor climbing season. Ironically, she was born in Nepal, near
Desperate to climb it? That shouldn't even be a sentence.
Everest, but spent most of her life in India and finally Canada. However, when her father flew her up in a helicopter as a child to see the top of Everest, she became convinced it was her destiny to reach the summit on her own 2 feet. But regardless of her Nepalese heritage and patriotic ambitions, Shreya was not a professional climber. Her training leading up to Everest was rock climbing at her local gym, martial arts, and carrying a 44-pound backpack for 11-mile runs in cold weather. These were impressive aggressive fitness regimens, but using it as training for Everest is like saying daily walks in your neighborhood qualifies you for an Ironman challenge. Wearing rented gear and posing in front of a green screen for a fake Everest photo, Shreya created a website to ask for donations to fund her journey. This is my dream and passion, and I want to do something for my country. Nothing is impossible in this world. Even the word impossible says I'm possible. You'll find this is extremely common for people who want to climb Mount Everest.
I'm possible.
This is their big dream. This is their magnum opus, and they expect people to care. And to no surprise to all of us, nobody donated to Shreya to help her achieve her dream. So she convinced her husband to pull out a second mortgage on their home to sign with Utmost Adventures for $40,000. She went to base camp and hoped to learn enough mountaineering skills during acclimatization, except she had trouble putting on her crampons, which were the modernized version of hobnail boots that helped climbers grip the ice and snow. These are like day one, elementary, basic level skills that a mountaineer should have. Her inexperience
Are you serious, dude?
Was so evident that her tour leader actually attempted to scare her away by saying that her attempts to summit would lead to certain death. Plus, her delusion would also put her climbing partners' lives in jeopardy. But it only got worse when Shreya didn't account for something that
If she was in my group and I could tell that my Sherpa wanted this woman gone, but she wouldn't leave, I'm like, can I catch the next group, please? Get this crazy woman out of my vicinity.
had been growing over the last decade on Everest. As more people were attempting to reach the summit, in addition to poor weather conditions, traffic jams at the top began to form. It was a new phenomenon where too many people would try to reach the summit when the weather had briefly cleared up. An estimated 150 climbers tried to reach the top Friday and Saturday as they rushed to use a brief window of good weather in an otherwise troubled climbing season. Many had been waiting at a staging camp for several days for their chance to head to the summit.
Most people die on Everest because of the queues to the summit.
Really?
Because it's so oversold, despite it being like £100,000 due. You're paying all this money, you have to live on the mountain for 3 months to acclimatise, and then there's a chance that you may not do it.
When Shreya was reaching the summit, she was showing levels of hypoxia that caused a number of Sherpas to advise her descent. Sherpa Takuri says he begged the Toronto woman to turn around, telling her that she'd already been up in the death zone too long, and warning that the weather was turning. Shreya shook him off. She was saying, I don't want to go back. There's no way. I'm going to the top. The climbers are technically supposed to formally agree to listen to their guides, but people's own egos can lead to their demise. The problem is that if she doesn't listen, there is no way we can carry her down. Takuri says matter-of-factly, she wasn't the only one to ignore his advice. A 16-year-old Nepali girl and a Swiss man also opted to continue. Sadly, the Sherpas would be proven right when Shreya lost her bearings during the descent and slowly started to die. She decided to rest in the death zone, and I think we know what happens when you rest in the death zone. Her retrieval was determined to be too dangerous to attempt, and she died wrapped in the Canadian flag. A PhD in counselor education and supervision, Dr. Todd Grande outlined overlooked problems of inexperienced and, quite frankly, unwealthy people attempting the climb.
The decision to borrow money put her under a tremendous amount of pressure to succeed. Perhaps she thought that if she failed,
people are seriously borrowing money. Oh wait, I guess she did. She like put up a second mortgage. I don't really know what that means, but it sounds bad. But borrowing money to climb Mount Everest, I can see the psychological impact that has, where it's like, well, I put all this time, money, and effort into this. I can't let this fail. And I guess she didn't fail in terms of quitting, but she's not here with us.
she would never get another opportunity to climb the mountain. She was going to need years just to pay off the debt from the first trip, especially considering how the interest would accumulate. By the time she reached Nepal, she had already made up her mind that she was going to stand on the summit of Mount Everest or die trying. Nothing else mattered to Shreya. Her life did not matter.
That's scary, though. That's like a scary thought.
Other people were expendable as well. Making it back down the mountain was not her area of focus. She was only interested and reaching the top.
Delusional people arguing with the expert Sherpas knowing that they're going to die has become more common. A Sherpa named Norbu said that he had to waste his energy fighting a man in the death zone just to get him to stop climbing. We had a big argument, and I had to tell him he was risking the life of 2 Sherpas as well as his own before he would come down. He couldn't even walk properly. We had to slide him down with the ropes. So by the time we reached base camp, he was really grateful.
Like, dude, fighting with the Sherpas, give him the most utmost respect you have. And also, I feel like maybe they should start doing like mental health evaluations. Make sure these people are actually in shape, mentally okay, and understand the risks. I feel like with those three, I feel like it's okay to maybe start the process to go up. I think a lot should change with this whole system though.
Gordon Janot with Alpine Ascents has talked about how companies are lying to customers because telling
this guy has piercing blue eyes.
them they will likely die isn't good for business. And then inexperienced climbers are lying to themselves because of their desire to become a legend without considering the very real people who would have to deal with the consequences of their actions.
Even with these things going on, we're getting calls like, I heard about the disasters, but hey, what does it take to climb Everest? You know, we'll give them a 3 or 4 year routine. But also, unfortunately, people are doing 1 or 2 smaller climbs. They felt like they've done well. They're contacting an outfitter saying, can I give it a try with this kind of experience? And they're saying, yeah. So a combination, I think, of people misreading what it takes to climb Everest, and perhaps some of the guide services misreading what should be expected from clients before taking them on this mountain.
But what's even more insane is the story of a man who did make it back alive, but felt like he didn't get his money's worth because of his demands that the Sherpas wouldn't comply to. In 2017, a retired Pakistani colonel named Abdul Bhatti arrived at base camp ready to reach the summit, and while he claimed to have summited other mountains easily, most of these senior Sherpas refused to go up the mountain with him. He was 60 years old, incredibly slow, and most of the expedition team felt like assisting him would result in certain death. Now, any normal business would probably take the advice from veteran Sherpas and refuse the service, but Abdul insisted after spending the money, and they forced a young Sherpa named Sangay to take him to the summit. The combination of Sangay's lack of experience and Abdul's lack of
I'd be so pissed if I was that Sherpa. This guy take a selfie, don't even get my face in it. Like
speed turned out to be a disaster. By the time they reached the south summit before reaching the top of Everest, Abdul was already running out of oxygen, on top of the fact that they were waiting behind other climbers. But Abdul recalling his experience sounds like a bad Yelp review. The oxygen I was already carrying finished at the south summit. The second bottle should have brought us back to the south summit, but it finished at the Everest summit. He also went on to blame Sangay or a team member for messing up his bottles, saying he may have opened the oxygen valve too much while fitting it on me, or maybe the cylinder was half full and he didn't check. Who knows? And if it wasn't for the summit fever, the two might have started their descent. But the summit was so close that Sangay and Abdul decided to go up anyway. Sangay was visibly suffering, but Abdul didn't seem to care. All he cared about was his self-image on top of the mountain. You can tell that the Sherpa was possibly suffering from hypoxia just by the way he handled the camera. He didn't take a single good photo. He couldn't even hold the camera straight. Cut this part or that part of my body out of the frame. There's only one photo where he managed to get my face properly. But by the time they started the descent, it was too late. Sangay was losing consciousness, and Abdul could only complain others didn't stop to help. I believe there would have been some oxygen cylinders at one of the dumps. So many people crossed us. I requested them to help, but no one looks at you. No one helps you. One guy asked me if I was from one of the 7 Summits team. I said yes. He took a photo of me and just left. Before the two nearly froze to death, a Sherpa-led rescue team retrieved them, but Sangay didn't make it out in one piece, losing most of his fingers and later traveling to America for prosthetic.
Oh, look at his hand. And this person looks like a kind-hearted individual, but just like forced to take these horrible clients, and you pay the price.
Literally everyone from mountaineer experts to Sherpas agree that Everest is overcrowded and as a result will only lead to more people dying. And the Nepalese government is fully aware of this, but they just make too much money to care about it.
How many of the climbers that you permit to climb do you think are well qualified?
Maybe around 50-55%.
50%? Half?
Yeah.
In 2019, Everest experienced their best financial season yet. Instead of focusing on moderation and safety, Nepal issued a record-breaking 381 permits for the upcoming climbing season. But when people started piling up at base camp, it turned out that the weather was some of the worst.
What is this photo?
First they had seen in several years. It was now getting into late May, and the opportunities to find a perfect summit window were becoming scarce. On average, there are only 7 to 12 days for summit opportunities where people can take their selfies and descend safely. The perfect day in 2019 was on May 22nd, which led to a complete disaster. Lines leading to the summit resembled more of a line to a theme park ride rather than a hike to the world's highest peak. The New York Times followed the story of an Arizona doctor named named Ed Doring. He had worked his entire life to reach the summit, only to enter the death zone and see
that was the day this horrific of a photo was taken. I feel like this photo can like explain like a lot about like human psychology though, just like the want of validation from others and just falling into just like advertising.
People literally fighting each other for the perfect photo. The Times wrote, climbers were pushing and shoving to take selfies. The flat part of the summit, which he estimated at about the size of 2 ping pong tables, was packed with 15 or 20 people. To get up there, he had to wait hours in a line, chest to chest, one puffy jacket after the next, on an icy, rocky ridge with a several thousand-foot drop.
Wow.
Doring recalled, "It was scary. It was like a zoo." According to Sherpas and climbers, some of the deaths this year were caused by people getting held up in the long lines on the last 1,000 feet or so of the climb, unable to get up and down.
I was surprised at how many people were, above 26,000 feet and were obviously either not fit or not experienced and probably
62-year-old Colorado climber died while descending from the summit. At what age would they say, all right, maybe you shouldn't really be doing this? I know they wouldn't ever do that because then they'll be missing out on the tourist money. But I just want to know, like, would they cut you off at like 50, 45? Just like realistically, I would want to know that.
Couldn't have been there.
Doring witnessed firsthand the deadly combination.
And I certainly wasn't prepared to pass dead bodies that were attached to the safety line.
Everest veteran Alan Arnett said, "You have to qualify to do the Ironman, but you don't have to qualify to climb the highest mountain in the world. What's wrong with this picture?" But probably one of the worst parts about the 2019 traffic jam was how people started to turn on each other in the darkest ways when lives were on the line. A lot of people were panicking, worrying about themselves, and nobody thinks about those who are collapsing. It's a question of ethics. We are all on oxygen. You figure out that if you help, you are going to die. A much less experienced climber named Riza Ali recalled, "I saw some people like they had no emotions. I asked people for water and no one gave me any. People are really obsessed with the summit. They are ready to die for the summit." The 2019 traffic jam and other acts of negligence contributed to another record death toll of 11 people that season. The Director General of Nepal's Department of Tourism said in response, "If you really want to limit the number of climbers, let's just end all expeditions on our holy mountain." But of course, they didn't do that. They did the exact opposite. By 2023, Everest had another record-breaking season of climbing-related deaths. The Nepalese government recorded 479 Everest-issued permits and 656 summits. Of these, 393 were Nepalese climbers, mostly porters and guides, who needed no permit. 3 Sherpas died under a collapsed serac while making the route easier for inexperienced hikers to climb the summit, while other climbers died when their health failed due to lack of experience and blind ambition. Across all 13,737 recorded summits through December of 2025, the overall death rate stands at 1.06 deaths per 100 summits. And while 1% doesn't sound like a wild number, it's important to remember that most of these successful summits are made by returned climbers, experts, and Sherpas who practically live on the mountain. As Bear Grylls stated, the actual chance in the average climber dying on Everest is about 1 in 6.
Wow.
But for a growing number of people, the dangers don't seem to matter. They could be elderly, have heart conditions, bad lungs, or whatever else, and the statistics show that the danger only makes them more interested in putting themselves and others in.
Wow, 1 in 6? Like, that's something you would never hear from any of these companies that are like, yeah, we'll give you a warm shower. Never will tell you.
Harm's way to complete an almost impossible challenge. It seems evident that these climbers are clearly searching for something deeper, a purpose or an accomplishment that they can attach to their identity. They make these deeply emotional documentaries about growth by pushing through near-death moments, even though they put themselves in these situations willingly, and put the emotional burden on their friends and family who care about them. There's a clear difference between that and traditional mountaineers, who are experienced climbers that treat Everest as a challenge to be respected, studied, and executed with precision, even though they too are relying on the decades of experienced Sherpas who engineered the whole climb for them, which is why true mountaineers sometimes regret climbing the world's tallest mountain.
Well, the issue is that it's the same thing as the mountain that I was on. I'm just walking up these mountains because they're guided. You really don't need to know a lot of technicals. It's pretty not easy. It's very hard and it sucks. Like a lot of them just suck to do. But so much of the work, like the technical work, making the food, setting up the tents, rope work is all done by the guides. Like you don't even have to dip your toes into the realm of real mountaineering and alpinism to do some of these things when they're guided. And of course, you can see where I'm going with this. It's the same thing for Everest. It's guided, there's fixed lines, you have people making the food, boiling the water, setting up the camps, and you kind of do just have to walk up it.
But the other obvious reason why...
Yeah, that's still like a huge struggle in itself, but it just really just shows that like people aren't there for the whole experience, or there for the bragging rights that, yeah, I've been to the top.
People...
Which is pretty big bragging rights, I will admit. I won't give it too much credit though.
Are so desperate to do this climb is how the tourism industry, as well as the abundance of social media coverage, has reduced Everest to look like a tough hill to climb up in the cold. Sherpas are constantly resetting and checking the ropes, adjusting the ladders, and moving dead bodies out of the way to ensure rich clients will make it to their 50-foot heated tent with a ping pong table and barista in it. Not to mention that everybody seems to be ignoring the 40 to 50 metric tons of trash from the highest camps that these people leave behind, showing they have absolutely no respect or regard for the mountain or environment.
Metric tons?
The very top of the mountain is absolutely covered in trash and flags from people leaving behind their marking. At this rate, one day you probably won't even be able to see the snow up there.
Like, how is there trash and litter at the top?
And the job of cleaning all of this up is once again left for the Sherpas, which is why many of them are trying to quit working for tourists and convince their children to live better lives.
They have to go on strike.
Even if it leads to less pay. Now, it should be mentioned that Nepal has started experimenting with drones to deliver vital supplies like oxygen bottles into the death zone for safety. If technology and funding are applied to the right places, this would likely lead to fewer deaths, but it also would ruin the very little esteem it still has, because the easier it becomes to climb Mount Everest, the less it actually means to reach the top. What was once the ultimate test of human endurance is becoming something you can just buy, which turns it into nothing more than another overpriced experience sold to you by a giant corporation. It all kind of reminds me of Las Vegas, a place that used to have charm.
Imagine how sick it would be to just like base jump off this, just flying squirrel, going past people, going past like the long lines, see you later, loser. That would be a sick way to go down. But all in all, yeah, I'm not doing that. Don't worry guys, I'm not gonna do a Mount Everest stream anytime soon. But that was a really crazy and insightful video, I will say. Shout out to Patrick CC for the amazing video. That was actually such a banger of a video. Like, comment, subscribe to me if you guys are new here. I really do appreciate y'all for staying to the end, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace. Eating on some hot fries. Goddamn, my boy is hot outside. Please don't try to diss me.